Okay, we're ready to start this final session. I want to say, first of all, congratulations to Lou. You really deserve the award that you received last night, Robert Rich Award. And I'm very proud to be part of this organization. You know, as I've been watching this program over the last several days, it just reminds me that the foundation has really always been in not so much a pontifical way, but a bridge creating way. This is a function of creating bridges between clinicians, scientists, patients, and now specialists outside of ophthalmology, doctors who deal with hypertension and diabetes. So this bridge building, this concentration on collaboration is really key. And I think Dr. Pasquale really is someone who has been a good example of being a good collaborator. And for the years that I've known him, he's always been just tremendous collaborator. And that's what this foundation is about, bringing people together and bridging all these specialists with patients, concentrating on patients. And that's how this meeting was actually created. We started thinking of how can we help the patient? How can we create a meeting that is unique, where we bring all these scientists together and we start talking about patients and how patients are doing and helping them live better lives with glaucoma. So welcome for this final session. I'm Greg Harmon. I'm an ophthalmologist here in New York and also chairman of the Glaucoma Foundation. Over the past 2 days, we've been convening with several dozen experts in various fields, sharing research and working toward our ultimate goal, which is to find ways to prevent blindness, preserve vision, and to restore vision lost to glaucoma. The Glaucoma Foundation is dedicated to people who are now living with glaucoma and also the millions who will be diagnosed with glaucoma in the future. For this very special meeting, we're grateful to have glaucoma patients with us now to share their experiences with us, as well as the scientists and their advocates. Dr. Lou Pasquale and I will serve as the moderators for this forum, and there will be a few presentations, and then we're going to open up the floor for questions from the audience. Elena, please help us start off.
Thank you very much, Greg, and welcome everybody to the final session of the think tank. My name is Elena Sturman. I am the president and CEO of this wonderful organization, the Glaucoma Foundation. Next year, we will celebrate our 40th anniversary. So today, I'd like to tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. Naturally, I would like to start with think tank. This annual meeting has brought experts from across the country, as was evident by yesterday's and today's presentation, and around the world to share their insights and to chart the course for future research. Over the years, these meetings have been incredibly successful, creating many new collaborations, bringing more people into the field of glaucoma, and making new discoveries. Since glaucoma patients are the ultimate beneficiaries of everything the Glaucoma Foundation does, at this last session, we will talk about what we can do collectively to improve the lives of patients with glaucoma. Oh, sorry, go back. The Glaucoma Foundation was founded in 1984, when glaucoma was widely misunderstood and underdiagnosed. We've come a long way since then, bringing more people into the field, raising awareness about the disease, creating many programs for the patients. At the head of the foundation, there are 3 extraordinary glaucoma specialists. The first photo that you see is Dr. Gregory Harmon, our chair. The second one, of course, is our founder, Dr. Robert Rich, and a co-chair of the Scientific Advisory Board. The third one is Dr. Lou Pasquale, is the co-chair of the Scientific Advisory Board, a co-chair of this meeting, and as of yesterday, the recipient of Robert Rich Award for Excellence and Innovation in Glaucoma. The board comprises of 20 members. There are clinicians and researchers, business and finance directors, psychologists, communications leaders, philanthropists, and glaucoma patients. Our scientific advisory board is comprised of 37 members from across the globe who help us identify the most promising research for funding. Over the last 39 years, the Glaucoma Foundation has supported many millions of dollars in basic and applied research. Last year, 2022, was our banner year. We've invested over $1 million in research grants, in our regular cycles, in the named grants, and our larger grants. The foundation provides education and outreach to patients and physicians through our website, www.glaucomafoundation.org. You can find a wealth of information on our website, anything from the structure of the eye and how it works, to information about diagnosis and treatment of glaucoma, to latest research that we've supported, to Patients Resource Center that could help them find a specialist and find a low vision therapist, and many other resources. Our bi-monthly newsletters go to 16,000 households electronically, and it's also available on our website, together with the latest research and our patient guide, Doctor, I Have a Question. Both the patient guide and the newsletter are also available in print for those who do not use internet. We encourage our patients to share their stories with our readership. Patients offer each other insight into successfully living with glaucoma and ways to manage self-care. And for physicians, understanding patients' experience is a key step to providing patient-centric care. We connect patients with each other through our online support group that calls APOP and stands for Adult Patients Under Pressure. Our patients can share their experience, frustrations, hopes, latest procedures with each other, and be a good sounding board for each other. And whenever there is a medical question, this group is moderated by Dr. Akriti Shukla, who is the member of our medical advisory board. The Glaucoma Foundation provides educational webinars for our patients on a monthly basis. And in the last several years, we have covered a myriad of topics. Anything from what do cold hands have to do with glaucoma, to the body-eye relationship, to the understanding of mental and emotional health as a toll on glaucoma. It was a conversation with a patient and therapist, to the promise of optic nerve regeneration. Last year, for the first time ever, we held a medical education symposium for both optometrists and ophthalmologists, where both were presenters and attendees. And it was a very successful event. We had close to 300 people in person and online, and we were able to give out 220 CE/CME credits. We plan to do this event biannually. This past January, we started a brand new initiative in partnership with the STEM Institute of CCNY called Start with the Young. This initiative targeted middle school and high school students from underserved neighborhoods who are mostly Blacks and Latinos, just to teach them about dangers of glaucoma and the importance of the comprehensive eye exam. It was our hope that they will bring this message to their parents and their grandparents. And in order to quantify whether they learned anything from our info session, we gave the students 5 simple questions before the info session, and they failed miserably. And then we did the same thing at the end of the session, and they passed with the score of 81. So clearly they learned something. and we hope to continue these info sessions every year. The info session was presented by Dr. Jose Quiros, who is in the audience today. Dr. Jose Quiros is one of our, one of our minority glaucoma fellows. It's a program that we co-manage with Research to Prevent Blindness. Brian Huffland, President and CEO, is in the audience with us as well. To date, we supported 9 minority fellows. You can see 7 of them on the screen. We also co-sponsor another award with Research to Prevent Blindness, and it's RPB-TGF Career Advancement Award in Glaucoma Research. And last year, Matthew Van Hook of University of Nebraska was a recipient. We connect with our patients through all forms of social media: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we are even on TikTok with our own TikTok ambassador, the supremely talented Jahkori Dopwell, whom you'll hear from in a minute. He is a glaucoma patient, an artist, and just an overall amazing guy. If you are on TikTok, please follow us. If your children are on TikTok, please tell them to follow us. The videos are fun and educational. Jahkori talks about his experience growing up with glaucoma. He talks about what glaucoma is and isn't, and reliable sources that patients should trust. The Glaucoma Foundation provides awareness through our public service announcements on local radios, through our bus shelter stops in New York City, and through billboards throughout New York City. The foundation has many, many partners. One of our partners is the company called My Eyes. My Eyes is the company that rents Eyecare home tonometers to patients who require it for a short period of time with the note from their physician. What we learn is that patients who require it the most cannot afford even to rent it. So the Glaucoma Foundation was fortunate enough to secure a donation and to support patients who show financial need so they can get tonometers rent-free. To date, we have supported 24 patients, and many of them report that knowing their IOP spikes has altered the course of their treatment. I am very fortunate to travel around the country to talk about patient issues and to meet with organizations whose mission is in line with ours, as well as conduct surveys with our constituencies that gather the data to help researchers and big pharma to use resources in the best possible way to advance patient care. Thank you all very much who participates in our surveys. Our mission relies on contributions from foundations, corporations, and many generous individuals. And we are incredibly grateful for their support and for their confidence in our work. We've been awarded the highest possible scores for our financial stability, for our operational transparency, and for our allocation of resources by 2 most trusted evaluators of charitable nonprofits, Candid and Charity Navigator. This August, we will launch our 4th annual Art Challenge, Visions for Visions. It's an online peer-to-peer fundraiser where amateur and professional artists submit the digital copy of their work. We build the whole web page for it. Each artist has his or her own subpage, and when they submit their work, you can see their bio, you can see their photo, but the actual piece of art is pixelated, and it only comes to focus when the fundraising threshold is met. And last year, we raised $87,000 just through this challenge. Jahkori is very active, and he submitted a lot of beautiful artworks, and many of you in the room were art lovers and supporters of this challenge, and I hope that many more will support it this year. I am incredibly grateful to all the sponsors of this think tank. We could not have done it without your generosity. I would like to thank the staff of the Glaucoma Foundation, Clive Fox, Andrea Steele, Angela Cooley, and Nilda Richards for everything they do. And I would like to thank you for listening.
Thank you, Elena. Now, some of you understand the comments I made last night about Elena's multi-pronged approach to reaching out to all the potential players that are impacted by glaucoma. These are just like incredible ideas, and Elena, thank you very much for that inspiring presentation. Now we're going to go on to some patient perspectives. And as I said yesterday when we started the session, we as clinicians, physician scientists, and researchers, we're thinking about glaucoma a lot. It is time that we hear from another set of experts, and that is the patients. And so I hope that everyone in this room who is trying to deal with glaucoma in their professional lives and daily lives can grab a snippet of information from the patients. Our first patient is going to be Jahkori Dopwell, who you've heard about now. He is an artist educator, and thanks to the care of Dr. Robert Rich, he's having an incredible impact on the Glaucoma Foundation and on the world. He is really an inspiration to all of us. And I think that, where are you, Jahkori? There you are. All right. See, maybe I need a visual field test. We are very excited to hear your take on what's going on with glaucoma.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jahkori Dopwell, and I was born and diagnosed with primary congenital glaucoma at 6 weeks old and have been living with it ever since. Although I had this permanent condition, it only had a temporary hold on my life. This is the story of how I defied the odds and accomplished my dreams as an artist with glaucoma. As many of you know, glaucoma is a critical eye condition that causes major damage to the optic nerve, and childhood glaucoma is so rare that it only affects 1 in every 10,000 infants. Luckily, my glaucoma was discovered early, receiving immediate attention before any additional vision damage occurred, but living with it was not easy. When you're growing up with something that requires long-term care, it can get in the way of your physical, personal, and professional life. Having glaucoma made me very different from my peers. While others my age were enjoying childhood, I was wearing high prescription glasses, eye patches, and other needs to protect my vision. I felt unfair that I had to receive special accommodations like sitting in the front row of all my classes to see the board clearly and receiving extra time on state exams. I remember my disappointment in having to miss some of my favorite classes like art for early morning ophthalmologist appointments where I was surrounded by older people and felt out of place. It was all too much for me back then. But looking back, I'm very thankful to have been under the care of my primary eye care provider, Dr. Robert Rich, through it all. I was his little tiger. Having a world-renowned glaucoma specialist with me every step of the way to oversee my progress was pivotal. Whenever there was instability, Dr. Rich would always find the right combination of eye drops to sustain my vision. For over 20 years, he treated me like family and was the only one my mom trusted to operate on my eyes. He performed my first goniotomy surgery as a baby and then a few more when I was a bit older, which helped stabilize the intraocular pressures of both my eyes and maintain 20/20 vision in my right eye to this day. Glaucoma had the ability to jeopardize my dreams, destroy my self-esteem, and close me off to the world, but I refused to use it as a crutch. I became optimistic and looked at my diagnosis as a blessing rather than a curse. Since glaucoma is genetic, that meant someone in my ancestry had to go through the very same things I was going through. And there are so many other people I know who are going through it too. So I found comfort in the fact that I was not going through it alone. Uniquely talented and gifted in the field of art, I knew I needed my vision. While there were some days it seemed impractical and impossible to achieve my dreams, I kept pushing forward. Knowing that there were people out there donating, studying, researching, and finding treatments for glaucoma every day gave me hope. I stuck with my choice to be an artist and didn't let glaucoma stop me from doing what I enjoyed, which was art. I kept going and was able to accomplish so much more than I imagined because I believed. I recently graduated from the Ringling College of Art and Design, receiving my bachelor's degree of fine arts in the field of illustration, which allowed me to become not only an accomplished children's book illustrator, but a muralist, an elementary art teacher, a self-made entrepreneur, and a freelance artist, continuing on for my master's degree. Thank you. Before moving to Florida, I had my last appointment with Dr. Rich, where he introduced me to the Glaucoma Foundation, connecting me with Elena, Sturman, and the team that I never knew was working behind closed doors to develop a cure for glaucoma through innovative research, collaboration, and education. With the goal of eradicating blindness caused by glaucoma and a vision to save the sight of their patients, the Glaucoma Foundation is currently supporting patients like myself and others through informative Q&A webinars, as well as various clinical trials where patients like us get to be included as part of the study. After learning about the mission of the foundation, I have become an annual participant in their art challenge to celebrate vision, where I'm able to use my artistic talents to help raise funds for glaucoma research. And this was one of my pieces, two of my pieces that I submitted for the art challenge. The one right there, the glaucoma sunset, that is based on my vision with glaucoma from my left eye and how I see a sunset with that eye. And even though it's blurry, it's still beautiful in a way. So, and that was some of the funds we were able to raise from that one. I also became a TikTok ambassador for the foundation, where I share information, tips, and facts about glaucoma to help those who are going through it as well. In life, everything happens for a reason, and your life is what you make it. If I wasn't born with glaucoma, I would not understand what it's like to live with something that I have no control over, and I would not be able to relate to others going through glaucoma on a personal level. I would not know the amazing people that I have met along the way or been afforded such amazing opportunities like speaking to you today. I could just have accepted my diagnosis and given up on my dreams, but I chose not to. I was able to see a path to a bright future, even with blurred vision, even when the odds were stacked against me, and even when it seemed impossible. I did what I had to do to succeed. No matter what obstacles may come your way or what disability you're born with, everyone can achieve their dreams, and there are always resources in place to help you get there. Having the right doctor, a supportive family, and an organization like the Glaucoma Foundation working every day finding a cure helps make glaucoma the least of my worries. Thank you to all the dedicated doctors, scientists, researchers, and donors and patients for all you have done and continue to contribute to the Glaucoma Foundation, helping patients like me get one step closer to the cure.
Thank you so much, Jahkori. That was great. Very inspiring. Thank you very much. So next we have Hillary Golden, and I'm proud to introduce her. She has spoken at other foundation events, and we're very proud to have her today. She was diagnosed in 2020 with normal tension glaucoma, having already lost over 40% of her visual field. She has a condition which is associated with low blood pressure, and thank you, Dr. Harris, for enlightening us this morning about that. And please welcome Hillary Golden.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for having me today. In July of 2020, I was diagnosed with severe normal tension glaucoma. I had a sty, and at the time, I was furloughed from my job due to COVID, so I had time to go to the doctor, which normally I wouldn't have. When I got to the office, I made an appointment with an OD. When I got to the office, they asked if I wanted to do a full eye exam. Since it had been just over a year since I'd had one, I agreed. They dilated my eyes, and when the OD looked in my eyes, she said, "I don't like the look of your nerve." And I said, "Well, I don't know if you know why I'm here today, but I have this sty, so that's really my main concern." And she said, "Well, my main concern is your optic nerve." So we did a visual field and an OCT. And when the visual field came back, my VFI was 63%. My mean deviation was minus 12.55. She said, "I need you to go to a glaucoma specialist. I'm going to make a phone call, and I need you to go as soon as possible." 2 days later, I was at the glaucoma specialist office, and she confirmed that I did in fact have glaucoma. Thus began my glaucoma journey with a drop. The two things I thought I knew about that glaucoma at that point were both blown out of the water. First, I thought you had to have high pressure to have glaucoma, and my pressures were 13 and 14 at diagnosis before drops. Second thing was, I thought you had to have grandkids or be retired to have glaucoma, and that wasn't true for me either. So, since I knew basically nothing about glaucoma, I started voraciously researching it. I came across the Glaucoma Foundation's website, and what I saw there were stories of patients like me. Some were older, some were younger, some were my same age. We all had different stories, but we were all fighting the same common enemy. Also, I had been in medical sales my entire career, and in my research, I found an opportunity to take a job in glaucoma medical device sales. The training for that job, we had a class, and a glaucoma specialist came in, showed us visual fields for patients, asked us, "How would you treat this patient? How would you treat this patient?" Visual field after visual field after visual field. And what struck me was, while I was sitting there, these visual fields have gray spots. And my visual field, and at that point I hadn't seen anyone else's visual field, my visual field was completely black in the upper nasal quadrant. Had lost 40% of my vision at diagnosis in both eyes. So it only hit me at that point how severe my glaucoma was. Glaucoma impacts us patients every day. Number one, we walk around with red eyes. Number two, we double and triple check things. When we cross the street, when we go downstairs, when we change lanes in traffic. Because we don't know when or if we might lose more of our visual field and we might progress. What do we need as glaucoma patients? Number one, we need to shift the paradigm in how glaucoma is treated. Currently, we go to the doctor every 3 to 6 months, some of us more than that, and we get our pressure checked. We may get other tests as well, but that one pressure check at that one point in time sets the tone for how we're treated until our next appointment. I currently use a home tonometer at home. I use the Eyecare Home 2 to check my pressure. I feel more empowered knowing what my pressure is, and I feel less anxious about my glaucoma in general. There's also patients that have a Reichart 7 CR at home. They're not only measuring their pressure, they're also measuring their corneal hysteresis for progression. Finally, there's now virtual reality goggles that you can use to take your visual field. Patients are using these goggles at home to measure their own progression. We need the doctors and the insurances to come on board with us patients because we're shifting the paradigm ourselves. We need preservative-free drops. Every drop that is currently on the market should have a preservative-free option. We are already fighting the side effects of drops. We have red eyes. We want to preserve our ocular surface. We need therapies in the form of diet, exercise, and supplementation that we can use to help our glaucoma. Many of the things that have been talked about at this meeting are what we need. We also need new and novel surgical options, not another way to do the same surgery, but new and novel surgical techniques. And finally, for patients like me with normal tension glaucoma, we need agents for neuroprotection, and we need agents for vascular dysregulation. So for patients like me that have lost over 40% of my vision, and there's many patients that have lost a lot more vision than I have, we still have hope. We have hope because there's organizations like the Glaucoma Foundation that are funding research. We have hope because there's scientists like all of you in this room that are fighting to find a cure for our disease and fighting to find new therapies. And we have hope because we have doctors that are on the front lines with us every day fighting this battle, trying to mitigate the side effects and managing surgical complications. I have hope because I focus on the 60% of vision that I still have. I have hope because I live for the moment, I live for every day, and the hope is in the small moments. The small moments are where life really takes place. I have hope and I'm grateful. Thank you all for the research you've done. Thank you to the Glaucoma Foundation for funding that research. And thank you for listening to my story. I truly appreciate your attention.
Thank you so much, Hillary. The next speaker is Amy Dixon. And Amy has a tremendous little write-up here. And here's her intro. She's a visually impaired professional triathlete. She's a member of the USA Para Triathlon national team. She's the reigning aquathon world champion, 7-time gold medalist, 2-time US national champion triathlete, 2-time USA paracycling national champion, and represented the US at the Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Games. That's amazing. She lost 98% of her vision to a rare autoimmune disease and now is a patient advocate and president of the Glaucoma Eyes International nonprofit. She is a speaker and advocate for glaucoma patients all around the world, and I welcome her today. Amy.
Thank you. 25 years ago, I was studying pharmacy at the University of Connecticut and paying my way through school, as many kids do, by waiting tables at night. It was a fine dining restaurant, very low lighting, and I went to go pour a glass of wine and I missed. Thinking I was drunk or high, my boss took me aside and said, asked me what was going on. And I said, I swore the glass was right there. And for those of you who know fine dining, touching the top of the glass with the bottle is considered a faux pas. So this continued, and I started bumping into the busboys coming in and out of the kitchen. The bright light of the kitchen and the dim lighting of the restaurant really played tricks on my eyes. I started having photopsia, or light strobing and flashing in front of my eyes. And because I was uninsured, I waited to go to the doctor. I suffered from migraines for the time I was 9 years old, and I figured it had to do something like aura with my migraines. So I went to go see my neurologist for my annual exam, mostly because he wouldn't give me a refill of my prescription until I saw him for this annual visit, and usually he gave me free samples. So I saved up my tips for 3 weeks to go finally see my neurologist. He asked me how school was going, and I told him everything was great, but I've been bumping into things a lot, and I actually fell down the stairs and broke my ribs. He held his hands out to the side and asked me how many fingers he was holding up, and I said, well, that's funny, your arms are missing. And he goes, oh, don't kid around, Amy, this is nothing to be joked about. And I said, no, it's a black curtain on either side of your body. So he canceled his afternoon appointments, knowing that I was going to bolt. He said, we need to go see an ophthalmologist right away. And I thought, well, that's ridiculous. I'm here for my headaches. And he goes, no, I think you've detached your retina, and we need to go see if you need surgery. And I said, surgery? I have no insurance. All my money is going into this appointment today. I don't have money to go see an ophthalmologist. So he marched me downstairs in his building, thank goodness, to go see the doctor, because he knew that I was going to get in that elevator and get in my car and go to work, because it was a Friday night at the restaurant, and that was the night that I made the most money. He sat there with me holding my hand as I took a look in the back of my eye and said, I hate to break it to you, kiddo, but you have a very rare form of uveitis. You have multifocal choroiditis with panuveitis and azure, acute zonal occult outer retinopathy, and there is no cure for your disease, and you're probably going to be blind in the next year. I called them a few choice names and said, I see quite well, thank you. My vision straight ahead is 20/20. I have no idea what you're talking about. And I marched out of that office, determined never to come back. Weeks later, I had my first car accident. I fell down the stairs again and re-injured my broken ribs. And I finally decided to go see Dr. Larry Annuzzi down at Vitreous Retina and Macula Consultants in New York. I did my homework. I actually went to my pediatrician of all people and asked him who I should see. So I saved up again all of my tips, $1,000 to go have this consult with this world famous uveitis specialist. Luckily, Dr. Annuzzi that day looked at me and told me that he could help me. The goal was to slow down the progression of my disease until technology caught up with the disease. So I was on high-dose steroid therapy. I gained 75 pounds. I had osteoporosis. I ended up with adrenal insufficiency and all kinds of other problems, but I could see. I was still driving until 10 years later, when I had a bout of bronchitis that triggered my immune system again and triggered my uveitis. At this time, I saw Stephen Foster in Boston, and I had Retisert implants put in my eyes, this intraocular steroid device to control the inflammation. As you know, these intraocular steroids can cause increased ocular pressure. Within 6 months, my pressure was at 52 in my right eye. It just so happened that I was working in the restaurant business, or in the wine business at this point. When I was told that I was going to be unable to work and unable to be a pharmacist, I decided to become certified as a sommelier, because I knew that no matter what happened with my eyesight, I would have my nose and my palate and have an ability to keep a roof over my head. You know, in pharmacy, Vicodin, aspirin, it all looks the same, right? So I had job security, I had a way forward, and I tried to do the next best thing. Always keep doing the next best thing, keep moving forward. And I was being given the tools through this amazing team of ophthalmologists, and also the research involved in these diseases. Glaucoma was something that we anticipated, and at this time, luckily, I had surrounded myself with an amazing team between Foster, Doug Jabs at Mount Sinai, Dr. John Wong at Yale, and Larry Annuzzi. And I knew tackling glaucoma, I was going to need to go through a team approach as well. So I was very lucky that Dr. James Tsai was working at Yale University, back where I was a patient. And he sat down with me and looked at me as a person and said, what are your goals? I said, I'm a professional athlete, I'm a sommelier, I need to be able to work, and I also need to be able to run, bike, and swim and lift weights safely and travel around the world with my disease. I'm in Japan, I'm in Australia, I'm in Singapore, I'm in South America, I'm in Europe, and sometimes I'm on the road for 2 to 3 months at a time as an athlete. I discovered the sport of triathlon after gaining all that weight and trying to lose it. I was a collegiate swimmer. So I went back to doing what I loved and what I knew. And with my reduced vision, I had a partner, a guide, a woman that runs bikes and swims in tandem with me. On the bike, we race on a tandem bike, and on the run and swim, we're tethered together at the waist. So Dr. Sai was really clever in that he set me up with, when Eyecare was in its infancy, he sent me home with an Eyecare tonneau pen and said, I want you to use this while you're overseas. We're gonna set up glaucoma specialists in every country that you travel to so that you have a point of contact if you have an emergency. I've had 39 surgeries to save my sight. I have 98% blindness. I have about 5 degrees of visual field in each eye left. And I'm one of the first patients over the age of 40 to have usable central vision for my combination of multifocal choroiditis and neovascular and steroid-induced glaucoma. And that is no accident. That is because of every single person in this room. That is because of the Glaucoma Foundation. That is because I'm a pain in the ass as a patient. I speak up for myself. I challenge my specialists. I ask them the really tough questions. I force them to think outside of the box and make sure that they understand that this is not somebody who just wants to be able to sit home and collect Social Security disability. This is somebody who wants to thrive with their disease. I want to give back to my community. I want to be able to represent my country on an international stage. I want to win medals for the United States. I want to change the face of what glaucoma looks like. Not every patient needs to be a world-class athlete. I know plenty of glaucoma patients that are federal court judges that are totally blind. I have a friend that just went through Harvard Business School, and she's been totally blind since age 6 from glaucoma. And patients like us are challenging exactly what all of you do in this room. You're finding ways for us to not only live with this disease, but to improve our outcomes through daily living activities, through the research that you're doing, through the tools that you're inventing, like the Eyecare tonneau pen and these intraocular lenses like the smart lens that are enabling us to monitor our pressure on the go while we're leading an active and busy life. Because I waited, I lost 70% of my peripheral vision within those first 3 months. And so what I challenge each of you to do is scare your patients straight. I really, at 22 years old, I thought I knew everything, because doesn't every 22-year-old know everything? I didn't believe that this was actually going to happen to me. And for me at the time, I didn't know that there were high functioning people out in the world that had this disease. I didn't know that living with blindness was possible. I had grown up outside of New York, and my only experience with people with vision loss were panhandlers on the subway. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to become a burden to society. I'm going to have to live on the street with my dog. I'm going to have to move back in with my family, which was the worst possible. I think that was worse than living on the street. But these things are where I imagined my future to be. And because I had a team that believed in me, and I surrounded myself not only athletically with the best chiropractors, physical therapists, massage therapists, acupuncturists, coaches, strength coaches, sports psychiatrists. I have a whole village that surrounds me as an athlete. And now I have this amazing team of surgeons and doctors that are vested in the outcome and are part of my team. And I consider every person in this room part of my team, because I wouldn't be here if you weren't doing what you're doing every day. So I thank each and every one of you for changing my life and changing future lives of glaucoma patients for the better, and giving us hope and teaching us that there is a right next step, and that with great communication between ourselves, the researchers and the clinicians, that outcomes like me, where I still have usable vision, I can still read, I can still recognize faces. That was not even in the wheelhouse 25 years ago. Nobody knew anything about Retisert implants. I have an Ahmed valve, a trabeculectomy. I have Ozurdex implants, Utique implants, you name it. I've got a lot of hardware in my eyes. I've put my surgeon's kids through college several times over. But all of this is because of you. And again, it takes a village, it takes a team. And I love the collaborative energy in this room. And I love the minds that are trying to poke at each other and lift each other higher. And the Glaucoma Foundation for investing in each and every one of you, because they see that the rising tide lifts all boats. Thank you for changing my life, and thank you for changing the lives of so many people. What you do matters. And all those late nights that you're spending in the lab and you're charting and you're coding, remember that there's a person who has a very difficult life ahead of them that you're making possible to be better, and you're teaching them how to keep moving forward with this disease. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Amy. That was really amazing. And now I guess we're going to open up to questions from the audience and those that are online.
Anybody wants a mic, just raise your hand.
Yes, hello, everybody. I'm here to talk about exfoliation glaucoma, which I know many of you are interested in as well. And I'm hoping that we can roll back this terrible, terrible issue to how it began. How does this actually begin? And I'm hoping the research will be relegated to that. I did hear a wonderful lecture that was sponsored by TGF from Dr. Johnson, who is now researching. I don't know if he's here, but in any event.
He's here.
Oh, he's here. Very good. There you are. Thank you. Okay. So we kind of communicated via email, and I'm so happy about the research that he is doing. And my question was that he told me possibly 8 years, that it may be functioning, this particular research, that we can rebuild the optic nerve. I said, but if we have an underlying condition like exfoliation, glaucoma, or other conditions as well, wouldn't all of this roll back to ground zero? And he agreed, yes, it would. So unfortunately, the research I am very much hoping can be, really determined to figure out what is, causing all of this horrible situation to evolve. I have my own ideas, but I'll keep that to myself at the moment unless I can talk to some people one-to-one.
Offline.
Thank you.
So sitting right next to you is an expert who does a lot of research in exfoliation, Dr. Richard Lee. He just ran a seminar on exfoliation syndrome, and one of the challenges is that, and Dr. Rich showed this a while back, is when the material forms, it's very difficult to disassemble it. I believe Dr. Rich put it in 99% formic acid, and it didn't go away. And he's been working on, nanotechnology solutions to disassemble it. But we need to figure out what causes it to form in the first place. And we're still working on that. We published a paper on the metabolomics of exfoliation syndrome. And again, this is with Dr. Jae-hee Kang. We collected serum on people before they were recognized to have exfoliation syndrome. And we found a shocking result that we still don't understand, don't know what it means. But to your point, we need to continue to fight, just like you heard all of the speakers here. They have hope, and they have adjusted their lives accordingly. But what we found was that serum cortisone was associated with a reduced risk of developing exfoliation syndrome. And that's odd because we know steroids increase eye pressures. We heard one of our speakers tell us. But exfoliation is a special kind of glaucoma where oxidative stress causes ongoing inflammation in the eye, and maybe those people, for whatever reason, that had increased steroids in their blood, somehow that protected them from the development of the disease. No one else has reproduced this result, and we're going to do further studies on this. The NIH has supported follow-up metabolomic studies on exfoliation syndrome so that we can understand it. But you're quite right. Even if Tom fixes your optic nerve, if the exfoliation material reaccumulates, we still have a problem. I don't know, Richard, if you have anything else to add?
So the pseudoexfoliation material is continually being reproduced, because even in pseudophakic patients who've had cataract surgery, we normally diagnose it by seeing the material in the lens capsule. But if you look carefully, even on the acrylic lens, you will find the pseudoexfoliate material all around it. So it's a very complex disease because, as Lou was mentioning, Bob Rich and us and others have tried to take that material into solution, because we're doing high sensitivity mass spectrometry, so you have to take the molecules into solution to be able to actually work with it, to find out what the components are. And we don't know what all the components are, because we don't know what's been solubilized, which we can measure, and what's not been solubilized. So it's a complex problem all the way down from beginning to end. What is the material? What makes the material? What happens to the material? How does the material cause glaucoma? We all have ideas, but there's no smoking gun on that at the moment. Right. So it's a huge area of research, and it's going to be very rich for that.
So, I mean, the world's expert on exfoliation, sitting in the first row here, we need to hear what he has to say. As he gets the microphone, there's a reason why we didn't focus on exfoliation this year, and it's because the science is still catching up. And we feel like we were just saying the same old things over and over again with respect to exfoliation syndrome. Right now, stuff's starting to happen. And we hope that maybe in the next think tank, Elena, we can come back to exfoliation and talk about that too. Bob, you have some comments?
Yeah, just a few take-home messages, because it's really gotten complicated, and we've found 8 genes associated with exfoliation syndrome. There's a huge GWAS going on in Singapore. It usually starts at the age of 50 or so, over 50. It is the most recognizable cause of open-angle glaucoma in the world. It also causes angle closure glaucoma. It is missed often by ophthalmologists. And if you have atrial, and it's also associated with multiple systemic disorders, including cardiovascular disease, heart disease, stroke, coronary artery disease, and sleep apnea and atrial fibrillation. So if you have sleep apnea or you have atrial fibrillation or become diagnosed with it, you want to get very checked out for exfoliation syndrome, because half the time it's not even recognized. We don't recognize it unless we dilate your pupils and look on the lens carefully. And a lot of patients don't get that done. They don't get dilated routinely. Or if they get dilated, the ophthalmologist doesn't look at the lens. And if the ophthalmologist looks at the lens and sees the exfoliation material, he may not know what it is. Look, you can't diagnose a disease you never heard of. So it's one to be very aware of, because it's 20% of the open angle glaucoma in the world. And at some point you want to know whether or not you have it, especially if you're over 50. And we're working also on curing and treating the associated diseases. We are trying to come up with genetic transfer. And I think I've been lecturing in the world for the past 5 or 6 years And the title of my lecture is exfoliation syndrome going to be the first glaucoma that can be predicted, prevented, and cured? And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Bob.
Can I just, I would like to also add something to Bob's comments. You know, exfoliation syndrome is also the leading cause of complication during cataract surgery. So it's really important for the patient to ask their physician as they present themselves with a cataract and say, hey, do I have exfoliation? Because that is something that it changes the way the surgeon does their surgery. Certain techniques are more important when you have exfoliation. So it's not just about diagnosing the glaucoma. It also has to do with routine things that can occur in everyone, which is the presence of a cataract.
So more questions, yes. As the microphone heads over to Sally, I just want to make a point to follow up on Dr. Rich's comment, and we heard this from Hillary. Patients can go a long time before they get diagnosed with glaucoma. We've got to do something about that. The U.S. Preventative Task Force tells us that it's not worth screening for glaucoma. We're going to have a response to that. As Elena knows, we're writing a gigantic supplement about how we should be looking at screening given what we know in 2023.
I just wanted to say thank you to the speakers during the session. I know I was really moved, and I don't think I was the only one in the room as I see people like wiping away, tears, and just thank you so much for sharing your stories. I know it's not easy to come in front of a room and share something that's so personal, and especially about, challenges that you faced, and also kind of telling us things that we could do better. And I think that's really humbling and also very motivating, and really wanted to thank you for being brave enough to come and take your time, on a Saturday with clear skies here in New York City, to share your stories. One thing I wanted to ask was that, in the research community, there's a lot of discussion about how we can involve patients more in research, whether that's having patient engagement during the study design phase, or thinking about ways that we can disseminate the results of our studies better. A lot of our scientific public studies are in publications that are not necessarily open to people who are not at academic institutions, for example, and there's movements to make them more openly accessible via like PubMed Central and things like that. But what are ways that we can do better as clinicians and scientists in engaging patients through the research process? I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I really think that using these predictive AI models is really going to be helpful. As I was talking about scaring patients straight, in that it would be very helpful for someone to know upon diagnosis, as a general rule, what their condition is going to look like in 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years, if left untreated. I think that that's very powerful coming from someone in your position to communicate to the patient, because we just don't know. People go to Dr. Google for that kind of information, right? And so I think knowing that on the day of diagnosis, like, here is our game plan, and here is if you do nothing. So this is why you need to come back. This is why we are why we are doing a surgical approach, why we are doing using drops and things like that. And I think the other things that we can do better, obviously, is getting to know more of their lifestyle and what their goals are. Not everybody, like I said, wants to become a Paralympian. Some people want to be able to just walk their kids to school safely, or continue driving for as long as possible, or maintain their jobs. So how can we set them up for success? And I think there was one of the lectures was talking about, putting down what the goal of treatment is. And it's not this, just because we're saying, oh, we want to save our sight. Well, why? What is your why? And that's how a doctor is going to connect. Even though you guys only have 5 to 10 minutes with a patient, that's the connection. Okay, so like, how do I hook my patient and get buy-in from them? And I think doing the research on demographics, whether that's it's financial barriers, whether that's professional barriers, level of education barriers, finding out what it is their limiter as a patient, and how we can improve in that area, and then also what their why is. and again, through research, patient surveys. I think the most impactful thing that you can do as practitioners and also Glaucoma Foundation is perhaps handing out a survey that people sit down at the beginning of before they see the doctor, when they're seeing the technician or the nurse, they can fill out these kind of parameters because they usually have some time to kill in between OCT tests and things like that. So have them write these down, and then maybe there's something that's going to be flagged in there by the physician or the nurse. That, and again, that's good data for research, and it's also good data for the doctor.
I would also add that don't underestimate your patients. So I'm in a group called Fit Eyes, which Dr. Rich helped to found, and the patients on there are highly educated on glaucoma. So there's patients that don't want to know about their disease, and there's patients that want to know a lot. So I would, find out how much your patients want to know, and direct them. Find out what groups. There's lots of glaucoma support groups out there. They're not just emotional support groups, but it's sharing information and clinical studies. And on Fit Eyes, everyone is very clinically sound, and we help support each other with data. So I think it's important to remember that about your patients, that glaucoma patients are unique in that way, and they want to know the information. So I would try to find out how your patient falls on that scale. Do they want to know a lot or a little? And then you can find groups that you feel are worthwhile to your patients and direct them in that direction so that they can get help, because now with the insurance parameters, doctors don't have a lot of time to see patients, and your schedules are full. There's not enough glaucoma specialists. So we know we don't get a lot of time with you. So we have to find information somewhere. And I'd rather, you direct them to somewhere that's a better place than just, like Amy said, Dr. Google, and just searching things randomly, because you can find all kind of crazy stuff. But at least if people are educated and you can get them the information from a qualified source, you're getting them good information.
I'd like to further add that, the well-organized patient is my favorite patient during the day. When they come in, they apologize for having the list in their hand, but I love that because it helps me focus on the things that really makes, that's important to them, the lifestyle and all these sorts of things, their concerns, their worries. If they come in with those lists and I attack each one and address each of those concerns, it's really a very productive, efficient visit, which is totally awesome. And I also want to say that the foundation has done some great things in terms of disseminating information. Having access to an academic paper for the average patient, it's not that helpful. You're going to go on, the doctors have difficulty interpreting these things. So a patient is going to go online and read the results of some study, may not come away with the right message. So the foundation, once again, is this bridge where we take this information, like Dr. Harris's very complex talk on hypertension and how blood pressure is affected, and all these aspects of low blood pressure, high blood pressure. Gaye Bamberger's here. She's taking notes furiously, and she's going to watch the videos, and she's going to distill that down, and we're going to have a publication that the foundation puts out that kind of tells the message. And that's really one of the critical things that the foundation's doing.
I've had over 1,000 visits with different doctors at specialists related to my eyes. And one of the things that the most impactful visit I ever had was up in Boston at Stephen Foster's office, where a patient advocate sat down with me after the doctor had gone through all of my OCTs, explained what the tests were, explained what the medications were, and sat down and gave me the information for the Glaucoma Foundation, gave me the business card, gave me a link to the website, made sure that I could afford my medications, and if I couldn't, gave me a link to the patient assistance program, and sent me home with samples that day, made sure that I had transportation to my next appointment, because one of my biggest frustrations, all the work you're doing in here doesn't matter if patients aren't compliant. Everything we do in here, if they don't come back to your office because they're so scared after their initial diagnosis, everything you do in here is for nothing. So we need to find a way to walk them through and hold their hand through this experience. And the doctors don't have time to do this. And this is where my passion is like, I want to create change in this space. And as of 2022, it's a billable and reimbursable service to have patient advocates in your eye hospital. And so now my goal is, I'm working with Mount Sinai on this project, to place patient advocates in every major eye hospital in the country so that they know what resources are available. They know the Glaucoma Foundation is going to give them great video and great content and great checklists to walk into their next appointment so they feel empowered. And they're not so scared that they don't go back. Now they're getting good information rather than going to Dr. Google. Now they have a person in their corner, a designated individual. My generation will go and download an app on our phone that's going to assist us, but we also know that our parents' generation, probably not. They're used to having a physical person hold them through this experience. And I think that that's so important, especially at that initial diagnosis. Follow-up appointments, great, but we need to keep people seeing for as long as possible. And you can do all the work in the world. If patients don't come back, it doesn't matter.
Sorry, somebody.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered my question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it's maybe you can add upon what you were saying. You know, I think I agree completely that it's really easy to take care of the patient who comes in, is educated, is engaged. You know, you can partner with them to really do what's right for them. And you know, I think that you know, I was talking about a little bit in my talk, but I think when people expect less or they don't demand as much, it's human nature to just not as engage as heavily with them. But often those are the people who we actually need to spend extra time with. You know, we actually end up spending extra time with the people who are really engaged. And I feel like we actually need to spend extra time with the people who are disengaged because those are the ones that need to become engaged. And so, you know, I know you talked about counseling and patient advocates, and I think that's a great idea. Do you have any other ideas, both for us as individuals and at a system level, you know, to really make sure we can, you know, start moving those people who are disengaged and maybe not expecting what they should expect to becoming more engaged and expecting more out of the system?
I think being able to list the statistics that you have gone through today and really putting that at the forefront and saying, this is a patient outcome if you do nothing. This is a patient outcome, you know, statistically speaking, with a you know, iridotomy or with SLT or, you know, any of these treatment protocols, to give them hope and feel empowered to make good decisions based on the information that they're getting. I think it's important to realize that those disengaged patients, it was fascinating to me that the Latino and African population is not as engaged as a patient and less likely to complain. That is so sad and true that they don't want to bother their doctor. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. It's a business. You're paying this person to take care of you. So why would you not bother them? Why would you not bring up your symptoms? But I think it's a cultural thing and ingrained in those communities that being tough and being strong is considered most, you know, and gritty, and that's how they survive in impoverished populations and disenfranchised populations. So showing vulnerability in a doctor's office is really, really challenging for them. So encouraging that vulnerability, whether that is a patient advocate who's literally is going to sit down with them and be like, tell me what you do for a living. Tell me how many kids you have. Do you have pets at home? You know, things like that again, the physician's not going to have time to do, but I think having somebody to disengage that guard, that white coat syndrome that they get with their physician, really can be impactful.
And I think it's important to ask questions to your patient. So if you're not getting much back, I'm the kind of patient that you were talking about. I go in with my list of questions on my phone. Every time I've got 5 or 6 questions, and I said, okay, we need to go through these. And then once we hit all the questions, I'm okay, now we can do what you want to do. But like, it's my agenda first, right? So
Hey,
I'm running the appointment, right? And then the doctor can talk. But basically, if you're not getting that back from the patient, you have to find the right questions to ask. So, are you taking your drops? How many of your patients say yes? Okay, so you're taking, and then you need to go through how many drops they're on. So you're taking this one 3 times a day. Oh, well, that one, you know, so you really have to get granular with it and ask them more questions to try to direct your treatment. Because if you have high pressure, and this patient has already said they don't want surgery, like no matter what, and they want to be on drops, then you've got to figure out if their pressure's not controlled, is it because the drops aren't working or are they non-compliant? So it's asking the right questions and not being scared to ask the questions to the patient. And you're right, the patients like me, you don't need to push me, like I'm gonna push you. But the other patients, you're gonna need to push them. And I mean, the onus falls on you for those patients, because the onus is on me for myself, but for those patients that don't speak up, the onus is on the doctor.
And I'm an educated, aggressive patient, and I went on Combegan. 3 days later, I'm walking to the train station, and I said, wow, I'm really tired. I'm gonna go sit down. Stopped at Starbucks. Next thing I'm laying down on the sidewalk. Next thing you know, I wake up in the hospital, and turns out my blood pressure was incredibly low. The following week, I go to see my glaucoma specialist, and he said, how was your week? I said, other than the emergency room visit, it was great. And he goes, well, did you occlude your tear ducts when you put the Combegan in? I said, what's occluding my tear ducts? He goes, oh gosh. So things like that, you know, you again, it's taking the time to educate your patients on these side effects and what these drops can do, and that I wouldn't have thought an eye drop is going to have such a dramatic systemic effect on me. So that was definitely an eye-opening experience. But again, taking that time to explain everything.
Do we have a question here? Yes.
Yeah. I think Sally had her hand
Sally,
up
yeah.
first, and then we can pass it to Dr. Harris.
And then we have Teresa also who wanted to ask a
Okay,
question. Yeah.
okay. So 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Sasan, yes. Thank you very much for some very interesting and inspiring talks. You were mentioning about the not having insurance and saving up the money to pay for your visits. I was thinking, I mean, many people in this country are either uninsured or underinsured. How do you get to a place where you can actually go, afford the medications perhaps from insurance, actually even be able to afford to go to the doctor's office? In terms of, is that something,
it's called medical bankruptcy. I declared bankruptcy at age 26 is what happened. I took out a student credit card at the student union at the University of Connecticut, and a Discover card with a 25% interest, and put all my MRIs, all my scans, all my OCTs, until I was very, very lucky. Dr. Yanuzzi asked me to come back for my return visit, and I said, well, that's great. I can't afford to come back next week. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, are you paying cash? And I said, yes. And he marched me out to his assistant that day. This is 24 years ago, and said, she doesn't pay until I can fix her. Obviously, not too many physicians are in a position to do that, but that's what was happening 25 years ago. And I'm not an unusual patient, right? Most patients are just simply not going to come back if they can't afford it. They're not going to put
might
themselves
not even go because they don't have insurance.
$48,000 in debt to go fix their eyesight. That seems fine, in the beginning. So again, the importance of scaring them straight on that first visit and getting their compliance and getting them to come back and feel supported and understood, and to have that patient advocate researching options, whether that's a patient assistance program, whether there's a grant at the hospital that they're seeing, or perhaps another bigger practice associated with a university that might have better funding to accept a patient like that. You're losing a patient, but you're taking care of them. And so I think we have to use our moral compass in those situations as practitioners to make sure that we're working in the best interest of the patient, and that we're not putting this person in a position that they're going to lose their home or lose their job or lose their childcare by trying to maintain their eyesight.
Clyde, can you pass that to, I think, Dr. Harris, and then there's a question here, and then we'll go there. You got to flip the switch.
Am I on? Okay, thank you. Amy, Hillary, and Jahkori, these were amazing, very touching life stories, and I think it's really important for us to listen to you. And in that context, one of the things that I've learned, I had the privilege of spending a bit of time with Hillary through a different foundation function as well. And, you talked about the contact with the glaucoma specialist, but there's, I think, the contact between the patients and researchers is really important. That's one thing. The other thing is the international, and that came up in our discussions, Hillary, the important, it's a global world, And there's a lot that we can learn from things that are going on in other countries. I know that on this call, there are people from Thailand, for example, and many other countries. We spoke about other alternative things to do. There's wonderful research that is coming out of India that talks about meditation, yoga. It didn't even come up in our discussions, and these are because we can't scope everything.
We invited him. He couldn't make it. I'm going to meet with him in Rome.
Super. So Lou's always ahead. I should just say my question should be asked by Lou. So in this regards, one of the things I've learned from when I spoke to Hillary was actually about hypertension. It made me think about the orthostatic hypertension and about venous return being a factor. And ever since I met you, this is sort of, something that is in my mind. So
I'm glad it's bugging you, staying in your head, so you can fix it.
So anyway, thank you again. Thank you.
Let's see. So the questions.
Yes, more than a question is a comment, and also thank you for the three of us for your stories. From the other side of the bench, that is the ones that we are scientists. We are not clinician scientists. That we are just scientists, and we never see you, and we never hear from you, and it's really inspiring because science on the bench is pretty frustrating. It has his little glamorous time, but most of the times it's very frustrating. And, we don't think that what we are doing is at that moment, we are thinking if the DNA degraded or if the RNA was not working, but we don't think that maybe our efforts can help you in getting new treatments or difficult treatments with gene therapy, and that they are so, need so constant. So thank you. That was sort of like my comment for that.
Thank you for researching for us. And when I say a heartfelt thanks, every researcher that I've talked to at this meeting, I've thanked them for their research. The clinicians, you guys are doing amazing work. And the questions that you've asked at this yesterday and today, you guys on that row have been amazing because you've helped us to educate us. And I'm so glad there's so many researchers here because you get to see us. You're helping us. We're just 3 people up here, but we're representing so many more people. And when I tell you how much it means to us, it means everything. And we truly, truly, truly appreciate you.
I have a bucket list of things to see before I can't see. One of them is the Grand Canyon, another one is Ireland. And I'm really hoping that I can see those things at my leisure. And I have a lot of confidence with the minds in this room that that's going to be possible for me. I mean, again, when I got diagnosed 25 years ago, they told me I was going to be blind in a year. And because of everybody in this room, I'm still seeing. And so I'm beating the odds. And I got to represent my country in 2 Olympics. I got to go to Rio in 2016. I got to go to Tokyo in 2020. I've won world titles, national titles. I never thought I would identify as an athlete at 47 years old while blind and visually impaired. So the things that you're doing has preserved my vision. That's not an accident. That's by design. And so I'm hoping that my bucket list will happen, but I also am really confident that it's going to happen, that of the things that I get to see before I can't see, because I think I'll be seeing for a very long time.
My name is Ed Lloyd. I'm not a doctor. I'm one of those people up there. I have glaucoma. And there have been so many wonderful things said over the last couple of days that mean a lot to my wife and I. But 2 things stand out in my mind. One was the care you get from your health provider. And I can say that has been so important to my attitude about receiving assistance, because that's what I've received from Dr. Harmon and from Dr. Pasquale, and from Dr. Liebman when I was dealing with another, and from the foundation. Because what happens in those discussions is I feel I'm being heard. I feel like somebody is listening to me and giving me time to explain what it is I'm dealing with. And the two things that come out of that are trust and the fact that I feel the doctors are my advocates and I can go with them and I can ask my questions and I'm getting time, to learn more about what I don't know. One of the reasons that, I really am interested in the foundation is this whole question about marginal communities. And I honestly and truly believe that the only way, or one of the ways, or one of the things that the foundation could consider is you got to go where people are. They don't know where to go. They don't know what the issues are. And so perhaps there could be some effort to get into the churches, to get into the...
We would love to. We would love to.
And we're trying. To get into the churches, to get into the community centers, so people can understand. People don't know what questions to ask because half of the times they don't know they have glaucoma. I was talking to a good friend of mine, and I'll be brief because I know I don't want to take too much time. I was talking to a good friend of mine, it's a Harvard graduate, and I told him I had had a surgery, and he said, well, how did you determine that you had glaucoma? And I said, I took my mother for an appointment, and the doctor gave me an exam and it determined that I had glaucoma. He said, well, one of the things that you get, I said, a visual field. And this highly educated lawyer asked me the question, what's a visual field? So I'm just saying to you that there are kinds of outreaches that can be helpful, but I just want to say with the support of the team that's worked with me, the foundation, and this wonderful caregiver behind me, those are things that everyone doesn't have. And to the extent that they can be substituted, it will mean an awful lot in terms of marginal communities coming out, that people being encouraged enough to understand enough about what they have so they can ask the right questions. Thank you.
Find a driver, we'll get a mobile unit, and you and I will go on the road together.
I want to talk about the issue of trust that Ed brought up and has been touched upon, in the sense that there is a cultural component that says I have to be strong, I don't complain. The other side of that is, who can I really trust to see me? And that's a big issue. And one of the reasons I noticed it was with our visits to Dr. Pasquale's office, there's this concerted effort to say we're diverse. We believe in diversity. We are approaching this from a diverse point of view. I doubt that we're lucky to be in New York. We are very lucky. The middle of the country, the South, how does that ever get incorporated? Because people won't trust you if they feel you have preconceptions. And there are preconceptions. Even in studies that say Black physicians sometimes see marginalized communities from the preconceived prejudice. So it's a huge problem. But when you see it on display in terms of a concerted effort, such as in Dr. Pasquale's office, where there's absolutely, we know this is a problem, we want you to feel welcomed, we see you. What about the rest of the country? I don't feel like I can move anywhere out of the city. And that's probably a European problem as well. But anyway, enough said.
So these last two comments are just marvelous. And fortunately, finally, after many, many years, the CDC, the NEI are listening to doctors, but more importantly, the patients, about these specific unmet needs regarding bringing care to patients. For example, in New York City, there's a big program going into city housing where underserved communities are delivering the care right there to detect disease. In Alabama and Michigan and rural communities where the same issues exist, access to care and poverty, these are critically important things. The CDC is spending a lot of money on that. And the NEI now has an implementation science program to bring these, to take the scientific information and, expand it, develop the models for delivering the care, and then measuring the implementation values. So that's a big change from organized, from government. And so it's a result really of the patient advocates and patients being involved with, as we've heard, with their doctors, with their organizations, and with their governments. So everyone together is what's making this happen.
So, Richard, you have the last word, and then I'm going to wrap. Oh, okay.
Okay. Yes, I'm sorry to take up a little bit more time. I just want to thank, of course, everybody is so phenomenal here. Everything that you've said is just tremendously inspiring and helpful. I would like to take an opportunity. The reason I'm having difficulty speaking is I'm having very, very untoward effects from 2 SLT procedures done just 4 months ago, actually, that nobody can figure out why I'm having these effects. So I am not a person, unfortunately, that can take drugs. I'm allergic to even Zioptin, essentially, because it has sorbate, and I have a UTI associated with it. The company told me this. I cannot take eye drops. I cannot take these procedures, shall we say, without untoward reactions. And I'm now practically blind in my right eye. My left eye is now going, which was 20/20, it's now descending as a helpmate to the right eye. I'd like to present myself as a research person to anybody in this room, as someone that's really kind of outside the realm. I'm a person that helps many, many people. I broke my back recently because I was helping a disabled neighbor. That's why I'm pushing my little cart here. So I have a broken back, a UTI from the Zioptin, and terrible, terrible blood. My head feels like it's blowing up. I can't even speak properly. I'm a very educated person, so I do a lot of research with my one good eye to help other people. So I'm way, way up there.
Thank you, Bobby, very much. We've heard you loud and clear, and we'll make sure that you are contacted with proper people. Thank you, Bobby.
And the next.
Jahkori, you wanted to say?
Yes, I just wanted to say from my perspective, as growing up, like younger, in my younger years, Dr. Rich told me he was always very adamant about researching glaucoma. He always told me to just look up the stuff he was doing and check it out. So he would send emails and things like that. And it was very interesting for me growing up because I was like, I never heard of this before. And then when I would pull it up, my mom would be all into it. She would be looking at it too. And then whenever I went to my appointments, having all of the staff and everyone always surrounding me, kind of grew up with me as well. And then whenever they came to do my little checkups, it's like they were so fascinated with my eye, like I was like their textbook come to life, They were like, they seen it in the textbook and now it's real live. So it was kind of nice to have that. I felt really in the right spot, the right place, and that's how I gave them my trust, because I knew that what they were doing was, something that they really had a passion in, and that they took a chance and they wanted to make sure I was seeing my best. So that's why I really stayed with them. And it's been a great thing that I did that. Yeah.
Thank you, Jahkori. So I'm just going to finish up by saying what you heard from the patients was a big thank you to everyone that is involved with trying to deal with this really complicated condition. And another thing that I think you heard is that, well, doctors don't have enough time, and that's true. And there's something that's being developed by Dr. Paula and Newman Casey, glaucoma coaching. This is what's needed. Just like what Steve Foster had, a patient advocate that helped to deal with the details, because glaucoma patients feel lost and hopeless without information, without tangible feedback about what's going on with their condition. And we need to advocate to the third-party payers that this coaching is going to make a big difference. And that might be something else that the Glaucoma Foundation would need to push. And the last thing that I want to say is, you know, some of us who take care of glaucoma, we don't even have a lab. But I say my patients are the lab. And I always listen to them, and I enjoy the ones that challenge me. And then, you know, even the ones that are passive. If I have a research project, say, hey, you want to participate in this work that we're doing? We're interested in, you know, if your basal cell carcinomas are related to glaucoma, and that engages them. And we, as physicians and physician scientists, should have a catalog of stuff that we can do in the clinic with the medical students and residents and stuff. And I think that's the way to draw out those that may be more passive. I want to thank everyone for just what was a riveting day and a half. This has been we say this every year, this is the best think tank meeting ever, but I think it's true this time around, and all of you in the room contributed to that. I want to thank you for coming to New York for this very, very special meeting. And with that note, Greg, I don't know if you want to say any final word.
Oh, you've said it all, Lou, really, but thank you so much. It's been a great meeting. Thank you.